So I get asked a lot, how do you increase your power in Rise of Kingdoms? I'm Shinchi42, one of the sponsored content creators in here, partnered with Lilith Games and Rise of Kingdoms. First of all, I have a very good question to ask everyone in here. What do you think is the building in your city at this moment that has the lowest building power? This is out of every single building. Tell me, what do you think it is? And we're going to answer this question in the middle of the video or at the end. Alright, so first, before we give you a guide on how to increase your power, what you must understand is how to actually increase them. Meaning, you have to look into the 4 categories that we have in here. We have the building power, we have the technology power, we have the troop power, and we have the commander power. Now, for most players who are doing a jumper group, meaning they're starting the game early, majority of the time they are starting in the older kingdom, and then they are going to be using their beginner's teleport to join a newer server. This is a thing called jumper project. Now, with that situation, there is a cap. So sometimes when you first start into the game, you will be seeing players that are like excessively high power already because they have worked on their game for about 7 to 10 days or something like that. Or they could have just spent money into the game and powered up as well in that sense. But for you to understand how to actually power up in here, it's not just about spending the money into the game. As we all know, this is a mobile game with microtransactions, but you can spend a lot of money into the game, but you can't be efficient if you're doing that. You need to understand how you're going to power up and when you're going to power up and why you're going to be powering up. And the biggest thing is how to power up, because if you need to understand all of these things that we just talked about, the how is very important. Remember, I asked you, what is the building that provides the lowest power? If you have answered Builder's Hut, then you are correct. This one only provides you 1 power. Now, we have a lot of buildings in here, and they provide different amount of power. The highest one that is going to provide you the power is, of course, your city hall. This is going to define how many marches you can dispatch into the battlefield, and as well as the troop capacity. The next one that's going to provide you a lot of power is going to be your wall, 1.5 million. Now, the cost of these is very expensive to get to that at the end when you reach level 25. Another thing that is going to provide you a lot of power is hospital. And hospital actually gives you a lot of power because there is 4 of them. Now, if you calculate 4 times 881, 480, it's going to be about 3.5 million power. So the building that's going to give you the most power, not individually, it is going to be your hospitals. Okay, now that we understand the building powers in here, how is this actually going to help you to power up faster? It means that you need to work on certain buildings right away. So you need to work on your city hall. You need to keep improving your city hall, do all the prerequisites, and understand that the wall is also a prerequisite for your city hall. All right, so there is a lot of buildings in the game, and you might get overwhelmed in the beginning, but just focus on the one that gives you a lot of power if you're focusing on that. So if you also want to get ahead of everyone, you really need to rush that city hall to level 25. Power in here in the game can mask a lot of things. So if you wanted to join a strong alliance in here, they're going to be looking at your power, right? So you need to increase your power right away. So like I said, these hospital is going to provide you a lot of power, and they are very important for you to max out. Not just because of the power, but the hospital is going to store those severely wounded. So when you go onto the battlefield, so these troops that are being injured, they are going to go into your hospital to be treated. This is how this game works. Not that we understand the buildings in here. As you can see, the building is actually the second most high power in the game. And the next one is technology. So if you're really going to be boosting your power, technology is something that you need to work on in the early games. In the early games, you shouldn't be boosting your troop power right away. You should be focusing on your tech and building. Now, of course, if you are extreme whale, then everything that we just talked about is, you're an exception for that. Let's be honest. All right, so I have my academy in here. The academy actually provides you about 783k of power at the max level. Now, once you look into the technology, when you first start into the game, make sure you don't research these, okay? You can find these through the villagers, and I'm sure you'll figure it out when that time comes. It will give you up to level 5. Now, when you look into the economic technology doesn't really give you the biggest power, right? It doesn't give you the biggest power to increase, to show off. This is not where you want if you're looking for power. If you are looking for strictly power, it's going to be the military technology. As you can see, I have already maxed out everything in here, and I have the tier 5 units. Actually, the one that gives you the most power is not the units itself, right? It's the buff that provides into the units. So like this combined arms, 2 million power. Encampment, 2 million power. And medical corps, 2 million power. These are big power. And imagine this, as you work through it, it's an accumulation of how much power. So keep that in mind, even with the buildings, as you upgrade the buildings, right? There is, each level has their own power. And you can actually take a look into that in here as well. So why is power important? You need to understand all of this, the military technology, the economic technology, the buildings, because if you're going to be powering up on certain events, you must understand what technology you need to be working on ahead of time so that you can claim it and you can gain points on certain events so that you can have an advantage in leading to win the events. In the beginning, these three is actually going to give you the most power. So you need to work on this, and this is going to not just provide you a lot of power, but this is actually going to help every single troop type that you have fighting in the battlefield. And I highly suggest that if you are starting to the game, you want to have a high power right away, try to unlock T4 as soon as possible, because the differences between T4 and T3 is huge. I'm telling you right now, it's big, and you can smack a lot of players with your T4. And if you want to dominate, you want to get T4 right away. Now, T5, of course, this is the ideal one, but it's going to take you a lot of time to get into T5 unless you have a lot of speed ups and resources to do that. But it is also very expensive to maintain the T5. Just remember this. Now, troop power. As you see, we have a certain number of troops right now. We have about 1.3 million troops. We have about 12 million troop power in here. This is just so subjective for every single player, and depending on the activity of a player as well, and how willing they are to fight wars. So for me, I have lost about 9 million, troops already. This combination of T4 and T5. So troops really is going to be the one that defines you how much power you have at the end of the day. So for everyone, we will have the same building power, technology power at the end, and then the troop power is going to be the one who decides who has really the highest power. Now, I don't recommend for anyone to speed up your troops on tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3. I would say if you're going to be using your speed ups, start using your speed ups on tier 4 and tier 5 whenever you get to that point. Those are going to be the one that is worth your speed ups, and do it on an event day so that you can win some legendary commander sculpture. As we go there, as we talk about legendary commander sculpture, we are going to talk about the commander power. So the troop power, unfortunately I can't click here. We're gonna go to a different account. All right, so as you see this in the troop power, for tier 1 it's going to give you 1 power per unit, okay? And then when you go to tier 2, it's going to give you 2 power per unit, and the same thing in here is going to increase that power, 3 power per unit. And then once you get into tier 4, it's going to give you 4 power per unit. And when you get into tier 5, it's going to give you 10 power per unit. Now, as you can see, huge power difference, right? From 4 power going to 10 power per unit. That's insane. So if you're really trying to boost your troop power, it's going to be T5. But with that being said, if you are going to be boosting your power through T5, you have to understand that the cost of this, when you are fighting in the open field or in the battlefield, whatever, it's going to be a very high maintenance. So you make sure that you have the resources and speed ups to heal your troops, because if not, and if you fill your hospital, you will have a lot of casualty and they're going to be like dead. You don't want that. Unless you're a big spender and you can really afford the deads and you can just retrain troops on an event, then it's okay. All right, the next one that we gotta talk about is commander power. Now, this is the lowest one out of all. As you can see, it's only, I have 3.7 million power. Even with excessive amount of legendary commander, is gonna be your lowest in here. Now, how do you increase your commander power? You increase your commander power by adding talents. As you work on your talents, you're increasing the commander's power and as well as skills. You can actually click the question mark in here, and also the equipment has a power. So if you guys don't know that, it actually provides power as well, meaning it makes your commander stronger. So if I remove this helm, as you can see, my commander power had now decreased. Now if I have equipped the helm, it's going to give me commander power plus 800. So these epics, they're giving us 800 power for the items, and the elite ones is going to give us 400 commander power. What I've noticed is that it doesn't matter if it's like expertise, like this one, it's still going to provide you 800 power if it's epic. Now, if you have legendary items, it will give you 1,600 for the power. So now that you understand all these powers and how it works, how you can increase your power, right? You can now focus on certain things in here that we have talked about. And at the end of the day, it depends on how much resources you have for you to train troops, to upgrade buildings, to upgrade your research, and how many speed ups you can allocate to speed everything up. So my recommendation here is that whenever you're going to be powering up, I highly suggest that you match it up with an event. So like, for example, on this day, we have a event, which is the Lord of War. In the Lord of War, we have to increase the power. So for you, what I would suggest is that you start training troops early and collect them on the day, meaning you have to use some boost. For example, if I'm going to be competing for this event, for the Lord of War, I can collect all of this. But I am not going to do that because I'm going to be competing for the Mightiest Governor event. Mightiest Governor event for me right now is coming up in 2 days. Now, also you need to look into who is leading and how many points. So sometimes when you are in this position to where like you're powering up, and you're fighting with somebody like neck and neck for one spot or 2 spot, sometimes you have to look at the cost benefit of this one. If I am to compete at the level 1 right now, so if I am to compete for rank 1, and I know Aloha has a lot of like, cash, and he can spend more, and we're going to be fighting for that, like instead of like this becoming 7 million, it becomes like 10 or 20 million points. That is the point where it's not worth it to obtain this legendary commander sculpture, because imagine that if I just stayed on let's say 3 million in here, and if I can do that in multiple events, I can either rank 2nd or 3rd, right? What's then going to happen is that I can get multiple 10s or 5s without using a whole lot of speed ups, right? So keep that in mind. A lot of the players in here in the Rise of Kingdoms, just because you have the money to do it, it doesn't mean that you have to compete on every single one to take #1 spot. Sometimes it's not even worth it to get the #1 spot. I'm not saying in every situation. I'm just saying sometimes it's not worth it. Sometimes it's worth to spread things out and you can get more value that way. It just really depends at the end of the day of your kingdom as well. So anyway guys, hopefully this video was very helpful. Smash that thumbs up if you like it. So how to increase your power fast? I believe we've tackled everything in here and you've understood how things work in Rise of Kingdoms. I will see you guys again next time. We have a lot of guides in here. Don't forget to subscribe and turn your notification on. Bye.